How is everybody doing? Strength Chat episode 144, and today I have got a very special guest for you. Today I'm joined by the founder of Revival Strength. Today I'm joined by the one and only Marcus Philly. How are you doing?
I'm terrific. It's been a good start to my day. It's 7 in the morning over here, and I've already got 2.5 hours of day under my belt. So I'm feeling good.
Oh, nice. And what's your plan for today, and what's been going on with you, and what have you been up to recently?
The plan for today, a typical Tuesday, early in the week. So I'm getting a lot of work elements, pieces done that are more administrative and you know, back end business stuff. I am also writing some editorial content. That's we send out weekly emails to our email list through Revival Strength, and those are usually on various topics of functional bodybuilding method, techniques, tips on nutrition, and so I usually spend some time writing that. I'm also kind of getting into the rhythm with my own personal training and video content creation. I kind of get that all set up early in the week so that the rest of the week I can focus on developing good content for clients. And then come Wednesday, Thursday, that's when I start to really dive into program design for my clients, for our online programs. And that way, by the time Friday, or the weekend comes around, I'm just sort of tying up some loose ends, and I don't head into the weekend with, a huge long list of things to do. So it's kind of how things shake out from a business perspective. But outside of that, in we're still in a pandemic lifestyle out here, and that we don't have, our businesses are not operating normally. Like my gym is still only allowed to operate at 10% capacity, which is really not logistically, it doesn't meet the financial requirements of the business. Like we can't operate the business in a normal way at 10% capacity. So we're still just doing everything remotely and online right now as a company. So our gym is closed, and our kids have limited childcare. So we're just, living a different life than we were 7 or 8 months ago. And there are elements of it that are really terrific. And then there's elements of it that, you know, we've had to adapt to and are challenging.
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of people have been put in that position with their current situation. How have you found moving things? Was it quite a smooth transition in terms of going online? And is there any sort of talk about when gyms may potentially open where you are, or how has that been?
Yeah, that's a good question. So prior to COVID landing for most of us, we were I would say, if we look at the whole business, we were approximately 90% virtual, 10% in person. That was kind of like the split of business that we had. So our gym was always a smaller portion. Our in-person business was always a smaller portion of what we did. Um, and what was interesting was that our in-person business, the clients that came to the gym, they received a product or a coaching service that was almost identical to what our remote clients were receiving. The difference was that they happened to live close by, so they could come to our gym and use the facility to do the training, as well as have a connection to their coaches in person, to see them on a weekly basis. So when the gym closed, fortunately, many of those clients were able to transition to a remote coaching, service, because it was essentially, here's the same service. Let me just write workouts that you can do at home as opposed to at our gym. We lent out equipment, so clients were able to stay consistent. Now, granted, 40% of those clients over the past 7 months have left us because their notion of what they were supposed to get or what fitness meant to them was very tied to going to a physical gym.
Yeah.
Once the physical gym was removed and it was like, oh, I have to work out at home, maybe I don't need a coach, or maybe maybe I'll do something. they struggle to see that connection, and that's a fault of our own to not be able to paint that picture very clearly or to make that transition smoothly. But in the end, it was like, okay, we've contracted that business a bit. But fortunately, as I said, we already had this very well-oiled online business that took a hit, but we were able to kind of leverage that side of our business a bit more, and keep things moving in a really positive direction for the last 6 or 7 months.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I think when you mentioned there about people have ties to a physical gym, I think for a lot of people they've gone through peaks and troughs of, oh well, I'm not going to end up doing anything, and then diving back into training, just because I think it's a little bit of an uncertain time for everybody. Whereas the biggest thing that I've found, that as soon as people have stepped away from training, whether it's in a physical gym or just training at home, they just find that the mental side of things, that everything goes out of the window. So just getting them back into training a little bit more. I think people are realizing how much from more of a I think is well-being the right word, just a complete package of, actually, if I'm training, I'm going to feel a little bit better, and they kind of go hand in hand. So for everyone listening, obviously we got connected from a guest that I had on previously, Jim Kroll. If anyone hasn't checked out that episode, really, really interesting, really, really cool guy. And that's how me and Marcus got connected. But for everyone listening who might not know your background, Marcus, and how you got involved in coaching and running gyms and your own training, just want to give a little bit of a background to yourself?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, I would say, I always ask myself, how far back should I go with this background? But I think the important pieces to it are that when I was younger, and let's say I was a teenager, I discovered that the gym was going to be a part of my life forever. I truly just fell in love with the gym. And what I've learned over the years and the decades since I started going to the gym, because it's been 2 decades of being in the gym, was that the movement of my body in a whole variety of different ways, along with the nourishment of my body and what I put into it, that had the power to change everything in my life, to change my biochemistry, to change my confidence, to change my energy, to change my focus, to change my well-being, to change my neural, my brain chemistry. And where people are constantly seeking ways for self-improvement and to lead healthier, happier, more fulfilling lives, I've just known forever that a big key to that is within our control. It's within our power through movement and through nourishment. So that was what got me kind of started thinking that I wanted to be involved in this health and wellness or healthcare sort of industry. And now it wasn't so clear to me throughout that whole time. When I was a teenager and then into my early 20s, I come from a family of physicians, so medical practitioners, traditional Western medicine. And I was a really great math and science student in school, meaning I got good marks, and it was like my brain could understand it and process it quite well. Yeah. So, there was sort of some natural pathways to becoming a physician that just seemed to suit me. Hey, the family's doing it. I'm good at it. People around, if I took the math and science courses or I took the pre-medical courses, I was first, in the class. And not that it was easy, but it suited me. So next thing you know, I'm in this competitive program at the University of California, Berkeley, pre-medical. I'm doing well. Okay, Marcus, you're going to be a doctor. That's how you're going to be. You're going to help. You're going to do this healthcare thing.
Yeah.
And not because I was like, I love medicine. It was because I loved what I already shared with you that I loved. I loved this connection between the body and what we can do with it, and then how we can dictate outcomes. And so I went to medical school, and I found out that, it's a tough system to get through. It's a tough system to change, right? I intended to go to medical school, achieve a degree that would allow me to have a certain level of credibility so that I could change the game. I could say, hey, guys, you're 99% of you are in the business of just treating symptoms. Let's get in the business of, curing disease, or reversing disease through good lifestyle and movement. And I just saw that was going to be a tough road to get through. So I pivoted and I moved into, health and fitness. And I did so by joining a local CrossFit gym and starting to coach people on how to do air squats and deadlifts and presses. And in a very short amount of time, I found that to be a more direct and profound way to influence change than what I was doing in medical school. I was like, look, I'm making an impact on people day to day. I mean, those first couple of years of coaching movement were profoundly life altering for me. And then I just stayed the course, and I kept coaching, and got really ingrained and entrenched in the CrossFit culture and community. Along the way, met some great, mentors of my own. James Fitzgerald being one of them. I know he's a guest that you've had on your podcast. Taught me a lot about fitness that went beyond just CrossFit. And I had a great amount of experience and knowledge in the industry. I just hadn't applied it to anybody. I hadn't tried coaching. So what I learned from James was like, you just have to get experience. You have to coach people. You have to do it. And CrossFit was a great way to do that. I got thousands of clients that came in the door that wanted to just get coached. I coached thousands and thousands of hours of that. And then it was consulting, and then it was nutrition prescriptions, and then it was personal training, and then it was whatever I could get my hands on to just grow my exposure to the nuances and challenges of actually making effective change in people happen through health and fitness. The same thing that, a lot of doctors have given up on. It's like, I can't get this person to change, so I'm just going to give them this pill. It's going to help them actually not, be in so much pain, or it's going to help mitigate some of their bad numbers that they have on their blood panel. Because I could tell them to go and eat more, salads and exercise more, but they're not doing it. So here's Lipitor, right? And it's like, that's if you're kind of in a situation to say, I can tell this person to change in this way to help their lifestyle. I mean, doctors know this, help their health, but they're not going to do it. Then the next best thing is to give them this other pill that data in Western medicine is telling me supports longevity and health for them. Then as a doctor, you're going to do that because you're trying to do right by your client. So, or your patient rather. So anyway, super long-winded answer to your question, but that's kind of my background. I apologize.
No, not at all. And you actually, I was going to jump in with a question, but actually, you sort of answered it for me anyway. As opposed to moving away from the medical side of things, and actually as a coach, being able to have a little bit more of an impact on people's lives, and actually have provide change to people. And it is interesting, that by actually talking about behaviors and putting good habits in, and then that leads to good food, that they actually start feeling better. And one of the interesting things is, when you were talking there, there's actually a couple of doctors that train in the gym, and we sat down and spoke about food and the feeling a little bit lethargic and just not feeling great. Now these doctors are obviously working in the actual the health sector, and we spoke about food, and a lot of the food wasn't very good. It was a lot of processed food. They weren't drinking enough water. The sleep was all over the place, and it's kind of how can we work to make that better, as opposed to, oh well, I'm going to take this supplement, or I'm going to take this, or have this. Whereas actually, actually creating long-lasting changes by adding those habits in. So, yeah, it was an interesting topic when you mentioned that you'd actually feel like you've had a bigger impact from the coaching side of things than the medical side of things. Because really, it should be the other way around. It's a little bit upside down, really. And one of the things that you mentioned there about coaching good movement and making people feel better, and obviously you mentioned it at the start as well about the functional bodybuilding. What I wanted to sort of ask is that when people talk about functional, there can be quite a lot of different terms, or it can be interpreted a little bit differently. But from your perspective, what is the definition of functional training, and does that differ depending on the person?
Yeah, I definitely think it's differs depending on the person. The functional part of it is there's two different definitions to it as I see it. Functional is when we're talking about exercise is and how it's become known. It's a category of movement selection or exercise selection and training methods that it has a particular look and feel to it. It's the more free weights, more your body's doing the work, less machines doing the work. You see it with people calling functional training things where there's instability, there's BOSU balls, there's stability balls, there's bands, TRX, that kind of stuff. All of it's just to say, like, functional training would be movements that are requiring you to create the stability, create the foundation of movement within yourself, as opposed to lots of other training devices and implements. So something that creates a little instability, that's going to make you make your hips or your core or your shoulder girdle have to work harder to stabilize. People like to call that stuff functional, which I think is appropriate, right? I don't think that that's like a gimmick. It's like, if you can do those exercises that require you to intrinsically develop the stability required to execute the movement well, that kind of looks like, life, when you're just moving in 3 dimensions all the time. And, there's not a lot of like guardrails for your movement of life. You have to kind of be able to generate stability, generate force in different directions, hold yourself in good postures. And that's how we navigate, aspects of life. The other part of that is coordinated movement across multiple planes and across multiple different, force vectors, right? This is a type of moving that integrates more brain control and function with the muscle, the actual muscular and other soft tissues that surround joints. When you have that connection, there's a feeling that comes from that type of movement, especially when it's performed and executed at some relative intensity for a person. And it's like, and it's hard to explain with like physiological principles, but essentially it's like, if you go and like hike a mountain and have to go over a varied terrain, and you get done with that, versus somebody who gets on an inclined treadmill and does the same amount of total work, those are two very different experiences that people will have. They will feel different. They might burn the same amount of calories. They might take the same amount of time, but the person who had this dynamic, experience of going over and around different boulders, having to, use their ankles and their supination and pronation of their foot, in different ways, grip with their feet, use their upper body to balance, maybe actually go into deep hip and knee flexion by trying to step up onto a big boulder, versus the person that just literally got into a steady gait on an incline treadmill. There's just going to be a different, impact. So that's, again, one way to kind of look at functional. And then the other way to define functional is, what is your function in life? What are you trying to do? What is it like? What does a day look like for you? And if it's like, I just literally need to get up out of bed, I need to put on my clothes, I need to get into the car, drive to my office, I need to stand at my desk or sit at my desk, I come home, like, okay, well, what type of training helps you perform your daily tasks at the best of your ability and feel good doing it, right? So you might not need to learn how to snatch if that's your day. It might not be important at all. And, but I think that the problem with that definition is that, like, people have, many people have grown into a lifestyle that demands very little functional capacity, because it's Western world is sedentary and doesn't require a lot out of you. We're not hunter gatherers. So therefore we don't need to go train to chase down lions. We just need to train to, drive ourselves to the fast food restaurant and sit there if we want. Right. So it's like, if most people's function is well below what your standard gym routine would potentially give you, ability for. But it's important to remember that, somebody's desire, what they want out of their training, what they want to have the application to in their life, should dictate very much what they do. And why I like that definition is, like, your function is what you need to do in your day-to-day life. Like, what is your functional, requirement for a Wednesday? It's always good to keep that in mind with a client, because if you're the coach and the client comes in and you're like, hey, I got the great program for you, we're going to do this, 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 and this. And then they look back at you and they're like, but you didn't even ask me what I do every day. Like, how can you know that person is going to really respond well to doing kettlebell thrusters and assault bike sprints if that's just totally far-fetched from what they actually need to do? So I just think about both of those. What's going to expand this mind-muscle connection for people and help them integrate many different aspects of movement? Exploring the human capacity to move, to me, is extremely profound for an individual when they get to experience all of the different things that their body's capable of. That creates buy-in, that creates a positive relationship to movement, and that can get people excited for a future of being engaged in activity and movement, etc. And then, as long as you make sure that you kind of put some guardrails around your training, where you're not trying to stretch somebody way beyond their functional requirements of life, right? Then you can also get more buy-in from people in terms of being consistent. It's when the client came to the CrossFit gym and they said, I want to feel better, I want to look better. And then 3 months later, they're following a competitive CrossFit program that's designed to get the best in the world to the CrossFit Games. And they're like, why the hell am I trying to do, the professional athlete program? I just want to look better.
Yeah.
So anyhow, again, I am crushing it with the long-winded answers today.
No,
Stephen.
I think that's
You asked me one question, I'll talk for 10 minutes.
No, I think that's a good way of looking at it. And it's interesting there when you say about, as a coach, finding out what people actually do for a living. There's a couple of guys that I train that work on building sites, and they do quite a lot of they already do quite a lot of carrying and moving. But then there's other people that, you know, work at the desk all the time. And when you're saying there about how people are actually um, feeling in terms of movement, actually adding in different movement patterns, when you're saying there about walking on a treadmill as opposed to, you know, climbing around some boulders or something like that, actually adding in different movements, it does make them feel better, because all they'll do all day is, like what you mentioned, get up out of bed, get dressed, go to work, sit down, get up out of the desk, walk around. So adding in some different movements can definitely make you feel better, and it actually breaks that rigidity, if you like, of that monotonous routine, actually adding in. And because you know what made me think when you were speaking there is that when people come in and people say, "Oh, I want to feel better. I want to feel as though, you know, if I go out for a run, I can go for a run. If I want to climb this, I can do that." And it definitely is a feeling of adding in the different movement patterns from the gym, so that when you go out and you know, an example is there's a couple of clients that have, you know, small children, and sometimes, you know, when they're just sat at a desk and they're playing with kids, the kids are going to be doing loads of different movements and making you, you know, go in different directions. So if you're only working in one plane movement, then, you know, you're either going to hurt your back or not be able to play with your kids as much. So I think adding in these different movement patterns and the functional side of things is just making people a little bit more robust, and not having them just centered in one place.
Yes,
with
absolutely.
With the you know, the functional type of training and mentioning feeling better, is there do they kind of go hand in hand? Is the feeling better, moving better, looking better, you know, a byproduct of the training? Because obviously you talk about stress levels, nutrition, sleep, but first and foremost, actually feeling better, looking better, and moving better. Do you reckon that's a byproduct of the actual just functional training side of things?
So let me just make sure I understand your question. You're saying, is it more on the training side, or is this a combination of other lifestyle nutrition factors too that really makes this something that people feel, you know, profoundly?
Yeah, and do you add, or do you start adding the layers and start with the training and then add the other layers in of managing stress, looking at nutrition, looking at sleep?
Yeah, no, great question. I mean, I think that there's no question that the biggest impact on somebody and their health and wellness typically comes from when they start to adjust their lifestyle factors and nourishment factors. So if you were to come to me and you were truly just like a blank canvas, open to whatever, you just tell me the best thing to do for myself that's going to give me the fastest, quickest return on my, you know, health and well-being, just tell me what to do. And I would almost invariably start at nutrition with some lifestyle factors, and I wouldn't even talk about movement. I wouldn't. I might say, okay, well, you got to go for a walk 20 minutes a day. That's it, right? But I wouldn't say, hey, we're going to do this complicated exercise program. Now, I mean, yeah, why is that? I mean, there's certainly experience tells me that that's true. And why is that not the route that most coaches take? And that's probably not the route that we end up taking with a lot of people. It's it speaks to how flawed the system of, you know, the health and fitness world really is. It also speaks to the fact that our society, our culture, and the things that we have access to are make it very difficult for people to dramatically change what they're doing in the nutrition lifestyle world by itself, right? So movement is a great tool to get people bought in to making those other changes, because there's more of an immediate feedback loop to movement. If you get out and you move, there's, hormonal factors, neurotransmitters, just there's a physical sensation that happens if it's done right, if it's prescribed correctly, that can be really motivating and feel good for clients and customers. Uh, a powerful physical experience that says, wow, that felt great, I want to do more of that. That can get the flywheel started, right? um, with nutrition, there's also a pretty immediate feedback loop, but it's not as immediate as a good exercise session. Somebody goes and sweats and it raises endorphin levels, like that can feel great in the first go. Tell somebody to stop eating sugar or to reduce the amount of sugar that they're eating, or, input more vegetables into their diet or get more protein. The turnaround time on that to feel really good for somebody is a bit slower, right? Our bodies and our brains and our taste buds and our genetic makeup basically has us craving stuff that's not super healthy for us on a nutrition standpoint. We were evolved to be drawn to sugar. Why? Because sugar was an immediate energy source that was rare to find in the hunter-gatherer times. And therefore, if we found it, we wanted our taste buds to tell us that's great, go eat more of it, so that we could consume as much as possible, as quickly as possible, to store it and in the form of fat for later. So if you came upon a fig tree that was like extremely, fruitful and ripe, and there was all of this fruit there for you to eat, and you hadn't found fruit for weeks or months, then it was like, I taste that, oh my gosh, that's really good, I need to have more, and you eat more of it, right? So nowadays there's not fig trees everywhere that people are just picking off of. There's, the sugar aisle, the candy aisle, the fast food, the sugar laden foods, which are everywhere, the pastries. It's like, oh, I just had what I don't get is, how do people eat one pastry a day? I'm like, I eat one pastry, it's like I'm going to eat 10 pastries. Like, that's what my brain was designed to do. It's like, that was great, it tasted amazing, and I need more of it, right? So um we're not set up for, it's like I said, it's difficult to make some of those changes for people because our chemistry is kind of hardwired to want to go the route of sort of unhealthy nutritional habits. Our genetics, our evolution was pushing us towards, get the thing that's easy to digest, that's really, flavorful, salty, sugary. Those are good things for us. Store it, have a bunch of it. We might not see it for another several months, kind of thing. Um,
Just
and
on that.
and the turnaround time again is also slower too. It's like, even if you give somebody chicken and broccoli, and olive oil, for 3 or 4 days, they might not feel better until day 7 or 8 or 10. The first 6 or 7 days might feel terrible. Whereas they go out for a brisk walk and they make it through it. After 30 minutes, they're like, man, I feel great. I feel alive. Like, I might want to do that tomorrow.
Yeah, definitely. When you mentioned there about going for the walks and adding those side of things, there is that immediate feedback from exercise, which may not get straight away from the nutrition side of things. But do you think that's how, from the client's point of view, sometimes that's what holds people back a little bit, because they do the training and they get these really good feelings, and that immediate feedback from the training. When it comes to food, that's what's holding them back in terms of maybe looking a little bit better.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, I think that, you know, uh, once once somebody's in that feedback loop of like, man, this is, I'm feeling good from doing this movement thing, and then they start to get back connected to like, well, what I really wanted when I started this was to, look good and feel better. And oh, and you're telling me that I can accelerate that process, or I can enhance that process through food, and that's kind of like, most people have heard like, hey, the way to change your body is through, food. but like, I'm not ready to do that. I just want to start moving. I got to start moving. And then they get moving and they're like, oh, now I'm ready to maybe talk about, what I should do from a nutrition standpoint. So like I said, if I had somebody come in who was just like 100% robotic and they just they would do whatever I told them,
Yeah.
I would get them on a great nutrition plan and a great lifestyle. So, make some lifestyle adjustments to them. And once they were in like a really good groove and they were feeling good, then I'd be like, hey, let's do some resistance training.
Yeah.
Let's do some cardio. Let's do some, basic aerobic work too.
Yeah, and with that, because obviously, in an ideal world, it would be a lot easier if everyone was robotic and did exactly they said. But as humans, I don't think that's really the case. And sometimes, and it's been a topic that I've spoken about with my own clients as well as some of the coaches that I'm working with, which is getting people a little bit further out of their comfort zone a little bit, whether that be we're going to nudge the weight up a little bit, we're going to turn up conditioning a little bit more, or we're going to start adding in some different elements of the other side of the comfort zone might be look, we're going to start adding in a little bit more food, which nutrition and food can be quite a personal thing to a lot of people, and what I wanted to sort of discuss or see your opinion on it is how do you go about sort of increasing that comfort zone a little bit more and just getting people a little bit further out, because to make change and long lasting habits, sometimes you have to get away from something that you're feeling comfortable with.
Yeah, that's true. I think the degree by which you try and get somebody away from their comfort zone is directly correlated to the success people will have in that, in making that change. Anything it's a fine line between like, okay, if I'm going to move you, I know if you do this thing over here, that's really far from your comfort zone, you're going to feel an immediate change.
Yeah.
But it's so far from the comfort zone, it's so far from their normal that it's very difficult to get them to do it habitually, because there's a huge margin, for error there. Like there's a likelihood that they're going to mess up, make mistake, not be adherent, not be able to be compliant, etc. Now, if you only move the needle like 1 degree from where their current comfort zone is, that might not be enough to get them bought in, because they don't see a dramatic enough change to want to, continue with it. Yeah. That's what coaching is all about. That's why we have coaches. That's it. I mean, if you just go on the internet, you can search for the changes you're supposed to make. They're there. It's right there. Do this, do that. That works, Yeah, there's maybe 20 different variations that are out there of what works for movement, 20 different variations that are out there that work for diet, and they all work. Do any one of them, you will see a change, right? The problem is that it's like, how do we take somebody from where they're at today, we'll call that point A, and then get them to where they, what we know is going to make significant and sizable change in their life. That's point B. How do we get them there, right? That's where a coach who has a lot of experience in the industry, has a lot of experience working with tons of different people, has seen has seen thousands of different permutations of nuanced variations from person to person, obstacles, challenges, everything that they can say, hey, I know if we go this direction, we're gonna hit a roadblock very quickly. So let's go this direction, and then let's go this direction, and let's go here, boom, boom. And you're just kind of like, they're just sort of taking a very unique path for that one individual, because we want to get them to be, but you got to go through A1, A2, A3, A4, A5, A6, A7, A8, like to get them there. And that's oftentimes missed by the new coach, the new trainer, the new fitness professional. They just know, they're like, oh my God, it's so simple. It's just B. Let's just go there. Come on. You're already at A. Let's go to B, right? We've done A for too long. It doesn't work. Let's go to B. And their client has a hard time letting go of eating the, the breakfast sandwich from McDonald's every day.
Yeah.
And the coach is like, why can't you just like stop doing that? It's just broccoli. Just eat broccoli. You're fine. You're going to be good. It's going to be great. And they can't make that jump. And so it's, man, I don't even recall the exact question that you asked. Oh, it was something about like, we don't want to take somebody so far from their comfort zone immediately because they're not robots. They don't just like say like, oh, well, it's either A or B. Okay, fine. I'll do B, whatever, No, there's so much emotion. There's so much cultural pressure and family and job and all kinds of stress pressure that is got them connected to A. And so to make changes, we've got to do it in a step-by-step way. And that step-by-step way is different for everybody.
Yeah.
So what I've leaned on for a long time is I believe that there's one part, here's an implementation strategy, and here's the other part. Here's the education as to why. Yeah. Why would that be? I think somebody who has a step in front of them that seems reasonable to take, they're more likely to do it. I think a person that has a step in front of them that seems reasonable to take, along with a good understanding of why they're doing it, is even more likely to take that step. So I like to try and carve out steps for people that have good education behind them, and then be there to support the emotional challenge that's going to come with making any change.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a good way of looking at it, especially at the start when you sort of mentioned, too far along on one dial, and looking at it of can people actually see, is it achievable, is it within their reach, and I think it is really important to give them a why, because if people don't know why they're going to do anything, I think you touched on it before, they're not going to stay consistent with it or adhere to it, because, well, why am I doing this? What benefit is this going to have? Is this going to have to me? But sometimes, if you can push people too far, like what you mentioned, outside of the comfort zone, you can lose their clients, or they can regress a little bit and think, oh no, that's actually a little bit too much. You said there about as a coach, you're there to guide them from, okay, so we can't go down this route. Let's go to this one, and working together rather than, because I think sometimes if you do push people too much outside of the comfort zone too much and too far, then ultimately, you can potentially lose them as a client, because you've just asked them to do something that isn't achievable to them, and that's the sort of the building on top of that. The cycle of training, in terms of, you mentioned there about, I've gone down this route, okay, this isn't working, let's try something. So from a coach's and a client's point of view, do you think that sometimes there is going to be a cycle of training where sometimes things aren't going right and things are going a little bit better, but that's part of the journey of training and nutrition and moving better?
Yeah, certainly. And certainly for clients that you develop long-term relationships with, I don't think that it's not meant to be just this continual positive relationship where every week you're making progress and you never run into obstacles. I actually don't think that is the best case scenario for a client, because with obstacles and with challenges, one, there's an opportunity to deepen the connection between you and a client, to show empathy, to recognize the challenges and the struggles that they're having, to show up for them at a time of need. This is what builds more trust, I think, for a client with their coach. Two, when things are going well and they just are going well all the time, it's easy to lose, not have a deep appreciation for what you have, right? Sort of taking for granted the quality of how good things are. We go through a period of time like this COVID pandemic. I mean, people are starting to appreciate so much more their home. What is my home? Like, this is the space that I'm spending all this time in now. Like, what do I want to do to take care of it more? And, oh my God, or just appreciating, like, I have this backyard at my house that before COVID, it was just a backyard that, like, we would go out every once in a while. And, like, now it's this sacred space to me. It's like, I am so grateful to have this little patch of the earth that I can call mine, with a fence around it where the sun shines on it. My God, like, so it's like just deepening appreciation for things because we go through something that's challenging or problematic. And, the same is true for a health and fitness journey. Hey, I just, I gained weight this past month. Like, I didn't have a good, my strength numbers went down. It's like, oh, it's going to force me to really look with my coach at what happened. What was going on with my training? What was going on with my lifestyle? Oh my gosh. Like, I slept less this last month. I had these really stressful project deadlines at my job. Look what that did to my fitness. And then in turn, like, to my, my self-confidence and my personal well-being. Things kind of diminished as a result. It's going to make you just appreciate the things that, now that really have an impact on your overall fitness and health and fitness progress. So I think that that's important, to have periods, downtimes. Why? Just because it's the reality of what everybody goes through. So normalizing it, making sure people understand that this is part of the journey of, health and fitness. Like, the weight loss curve doesn't look like a straight line down. Yeah. It looks like this bouncing thing, where, one Monday you're up 3 pounds from last week. The next Monday you're down 2 pounds, and it goes up and down, up and down, up and down. And over the course of 6 months, your net, average is down 6 pounds. Great. You gained 2 pounds this week. You lost 3 pounds the next week. It happens like that.
Yeah, definitely. And, it goes kind of full circle to what we said at the start about, it is on an individual basis. Everyone's going to have times where they're going to be a little bit down or a little bit higher. But that's how you end up working with a coach and finding out what works for them. And the bit at the start when you mentioned about what's that person's purpose, taking into account everything surrounding that. So quite a lot of topics covered there. But the last question about everything that we've spoken about, obviously we spoke about the training side of things and the training and the health and fitness journey. But from everything that we've spoken about, what would be your take-home points or words of wisdom for everyone listening?
Well, given what we've spoken about today, my take-home points and my words of wisdom, I think would have to be that you have the power to control, or at least to give yourself the best opportunity at a happy, fulfilling life, just by being able to alter your own biochemistry through movement and through nourishment. Now, it's not easy to, put together the perfect formula to make your biochemistry optimized. But the point is that we have the power to do it, not in a pill, not in a supplement, but in moving and just choosing some of the right things to put inside your body from food. So the tools and the solutions are there. They're out there and they work. And the next step is about discovering for you, how are you going to put together the right movement and nourishment plan to give you the feeling that you are chasing in life? That I want to feel better. I want to feel in control. I want to feel energetic and enthusiastic and excited for life each day. And if you really want that, and you don't want to go the route of taking a bunch of pills or trying to buy a bunch of supplements or dumping a bunch of money down the drain to use the thing that is the hot new trend, if you want to choose movement and nourishment, then we're here to teach you, and we're here to give you that next logical step in your path. And you don't have to be a robot to do it perfectly. You can be a real person that has real obstacles. So long as you are committed to it and you want that, we have the tools to guide you there.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of looking at it, rather than trying to look for the shortcut or the easy way. With a supplement or anything like that. Because all the things that we teach in terms of nutrition, sleep, stress management, training, like you say, the tools are there. So for everyone listening, who might have any questions about what we've spoken about today, or want to have a look at the content yourself and Revival Strength out there, where can people find you or get in contact with you?
Yeah, absolutely. Please visit me at Marcus Philly on Instagram, at Marcus Philly. And then also go to revival-strength.com. That's our website. And join our email list. Okay. It's not an email list where I'm going to blast you with a bunch of promotions and stuff like that. It's an email list where I send out 2 newsletters a week with like actionable stuff to do. I'm literally, after we get off this call today, I'll be working on, wrapping up a editorial for this Friday. It's going to be like, this is how you can learn some basics in the kitchen to go and start to take really effective food strategies, make them taste great, make it simple. There's going to be a ton of information in there. That's just a Friday, a general Friday. So get on the newsletter so that you can get your hands on some of this great information.
Awesome. Thanks a lot for taking the time to chat with Marcus.
My pleasure.
For everyone listening, obviously for all the topics that we've chatted about there, the things that we've spoken about, exactly like Marcus said, the tools are there, and these are effective ways to get results. So 100%, check out the work that Marcus is doing with his newsletter and the content that he's putting out there. So thanks again. Thanks a lot to everyone listening, and I will see you all next week.